Hey everyone, volitionVX here. This is footage from the open beta of Diablo 2 Resurrected that took place from August 20th to the 23rd. I captured footage from the 5 classes available for play and will be giving my thoughts on the game so far. There's no level cap, and the first 2 acts are available in this open beta. I started with the Barbarian, which is my favorite class from D2. The original version of the game runs underneath the enhanced graphics that you see, and makes the old zones a treat to look at. I played the hell out of this game back in 2000 and poured a ton of days as a teen playing it. It was always a hassle getting this to run on modern versions of Windows, not to mention being locked to an 800 by 600 resolution. Being able to play this in an ultra-wide resolution like 3840 by 1600 is more than appreciated. The sounds you remember playing this game before are all there. There are some jarring exceptions though, which are minor, like the quest complete sound in your quest log, or when some enemy types die. And it's only noticeable because Blizzard did a great job keeping the sound true to the original game everywhere else. This is the Cathedral, level 4, where we fight in Dariel, the boss of Act 1. But in the game with 8 players, she's no match for us. The rest of the party takes a little bit to get here, but eventually they show up. I'm limited by time, unfortunately, and I wanted to give other classes a try. With a Barb, I would typically do a Frenzy Whirlwind build, and it'd be decked out in gear. All my points are in Spear Mastery, with maybe 1 point in Stun for a beefier basic attack. My very first Barb in Diablo 2 went with the Spear, so it kinda made sense to roll this first. My plan is to hang back and let someone else aggro and Dariel to the group, and as you saw, I got the inventory space open just in case. It's quite the change from Diablo 3 where everyone has instant loot. I'm not happy to go back to the days of a click fest to grab gear from a boss. It's very disheartening to put the damage in and someone sneaks in and swipes a possible upgrade from you. Right now, it's very tense. I'm ready to click as fast as possible in case something drops while I'm trying to do damage to this boss. I got the loot, and it's eyes and hearts. Great. The UI for your inventory is just as you remember. There's new graphic designs for rings and amulets, but it's similar for most other items. The Paladin, the Holy Warrior Zakaru. I tended not to bother with Hammerdins back in the day. It seemed like their playstyle was too easy. I like using Zeal or Charge a lot. There was also a Sacrifice Paladin I used to build that could do heavy damage to enemies, but also hurt itself. It was funny going into random games and seeing my Paladin name was slain by himself. Random players would see that and say, "How'd you do that?" This is from the Dark Wood in Act 1. We're getting the Scroll of Inifis in order to access a portal to Tristram, which we'll see in a little bit. I know, kill the shaman first, but I figured the rest of the group had it. Even something as mundane in the original, like seeing a house on fire, which you see a lot in the scenery of Act 1, it looks wonderful in Diablo 2 Resurrected. You can set your Show All Loot key as a toggle, which is a welcome change. In the original, you had to press and hold a key to see all your loot. Diablo 3 just cuts right through that and has loot always show up. It's a quality of life change I think players have gotten used to. Another change carried over from Diablo 3, walking over gold to pick it up. If you die, I noticed the gold you drop is not a part of this vacuum. You have to go out of your way to pick up some dead player's gold. Having to constantly click for gold got tedious really quick. And if you really like it that way, you can always disable it. The gray item is a socket item which you can insert gems into for different effects. It'd be nice if Blizzard listed how many sockets are in it before I picked it up.
It's as if a great war were fought here.
The Amazon answers the call to help our buddy, Deckard Cain. Tristram is a throwback to the original Diablo. This was the town where that game took place. When I was a kid, it was pretty heavy that there was no happy ending for the citizens here. Or for anyone, for that matter. They're all dead and gone, except for Griswold the blacksmith. It was nice to venture back and see what happened here during the original campaign. And even remade, it's still kinda sad. Champion packs like this one are the proto version of elite packs in Diablo 3. No orbs to advance your rip gauge, just items. Which, hey, I got no problem with that. I went with a basic Boazon build, nothing crazy. Builds like multi-shot or guided arrow don't really shine until you get life leech and mono leech items, and that's not going to really happen in Act 1. Griswold is on the loose over to the right. He's a cursed enemy who will cast amplify damage on all players, so you end up taking more damage from all sources. Amplify damage is also a necromancer skill under their curses trait. Fun fact, any of the beneficial shrine effects in the game are technically considered curses. If you ever have a buff from a shrine and fight a cursed enemy, their amplified damage can overwrite your shrine's effect. The Paladin's Cleansing Aura can also decrease a shrine effect's duration time, since that aura decreases the length of poisons and curses. That Sorceress was not paying attention. If this was a higher difficulty like Nightmare or Hell, that would have been it. Now Griswold is smitten with me, a blonde buxom beauty, but I ain't having it. You can zoom in with the press of a key, and it really shows off the amount of detail in this remake. Nobody cares about a rare throwing axe, and that's why it was still on the ground.
Can't carry anymore.
The Druid is making his way through the wastes outside of Loot Gawain in Act 2. Since the Necromancer isn't a part of the open beta, the Druid is the only summoning class we have access to. I opted to focus on his elemental tree though. There's a lot of fun skills like Molten Boulder and Fissure that do great AoE damage. I decided to give controller support a spin, and it worked well enough. It's not like how it's implemented in the console versions of Diablo 3. The UI does change to facilitate a controller, rather seamlessly I might add. I can go back between mouse and keyboard and controller and it'll switch accordingly, which is nice. There's no way to maintain a lock on a particular enemy like in the console versions of Diablo 3. Also, managing your inventory can be kind of tedious, but making the attempt and putting it on the PC version is a step in the right direction. I was never a fan of desert levels. Act 2 of Diablo 2 is pretty much this. Flat, desolate, boring, just like a desert. Act 2 and Act 3 for me were not the most fun acts to go through. Act 3 takes us across the sea to Kurast, which is a jungle nation. And that's fine, but it does drag in some parts. At this point there were some nagging issues about the game that I think I overlooked when I was younger. The lack of instance loot mentioned earlier, the feeling of moving along an 8-way field of movement, which feels restrictive compared to how fluid Diablo 3 feels. I was half worried about corpse popping also. In older versions of Diablo 2, you couldn't have more than one corpse at a time. If you died, then on the return back to get your corpse, you accidentally picked up an item, and then you died again, your first corpse would pop, and all of your gear would be on the ground for players to pick up. There was no soulbound gear. Diablo 2 apparently got an update later on that prevented this from happening, but I played way back in the day where this was a possibility if you died. You always had to be cautious of that. That dread never left me as a player. There's people out there who actually prefer it that way and would want to go back if they had the chance. Seriously? Lightning enchanted minions were always deadly. These beetles are like this by default, and they are a hassle for people in melee range. I figure turnabout is fair play, so here I am with my Sorceress, using Charged Bolt to fry enemies. This is the last class available for the open beta. I picked up a mana recharge shrine earlier, which boosts a character's mana recharge rate by 400%. The Sorceress also has Warmth, a passive skill in her fire tree that has the same effect. I can't confirm if the two effects stack though. Typically with the Sorceress I would use Frozen Orb with Thunderstorm or Hydra. Both are fun builds. If I had more time, I would attempt to turn this Charge Bolt Sorc into a Chain Lightning build, just for the hell of it. With an X input controller, you have to press and hold your A button in order to use an item from your inventory. In order to sell something at a vendor or bring it from your inventory to your stash, you have to press and hold the X button. That same button will drop an item to the ground with a tap. This led me to losing a set belt. I think it was Cleglaws or something. The beta was over in a few hours anyway, so it didn't matter, but it's a lesson learned, and why I say inventory management with a controller could be better.
Not enough mana.
We move on to the Inner Cloister and the Cathedral to cap off this video. It was fun, being able to play Diablo 2 again without the use of plugins or anything, having it take advantage of my ultra-wide monitor. It looks amazing. But I got to thinking about how powerful nostalgia is. Something like Diablo 2 Resurrected would appeal to me as a player because I played it and enjoyed it long ago. But Diablo 3 has been out for almost 10 years now, and has come into its own with its Reaper of Souls expansion. There are plenty of things Diablo 3 does right, and I find myself wondering about the design decisions back in the day with Diablo 2, and how we as players overlooked a lot of things. I want to cover this further in a video when Diablo 2 Resurrected is good and released, but what are your thoughts? Did you play the beta? What'd you think? Did you play Diablo 2 decades ago? How does that experience compare to now? Feel free to leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. There is more to come, content-wise. Please feel free to check out my other videos, follow me on Twitter, the link's in the description, and as always, thank you so much for watching.